The airspace between the US and Canada is one of the world's busiest, connecting millions of travelers each year for business, tourism, and family visits. This partnership has created a seamless travel experience, with US and Canadian airlines operating extensive cross-border routes. The economic impact is massive, supporting thousands of jobs and fueling commerce on both sides. But this interdependence means disruptions in one country quickly ripple across the border. When a major Canadian airline faces trouble, it's not just a Canadian problem, it's a North American one. Flight cancellations in Toronto can strand passengers in Chicago or Los Angeles, revealing the fragility of this tightly woven system. The events of 2025 made this vulnerability clear. What started as a domestic labor dispute in Canada soon became a cross-border crisis, exposing the risks of relying on a single carrier. The smooth operation of our shared skies can't be taken for granted. The stage was set for a major rethinking of how this vital market works. In August 2025, Air Canada's flight attendants went on strike, halting the nation's largest airline at the height of summer travel. The dispute over wages and working conditions led to a 4-day walkout, canceling hundreds of flights daily, including over 430 US-Canada routes. 500,000 passengers were stranded, and chaos spread as partner airlines scrambled to accommodate displaced travelers. U.S. airports like Chicago O'Hare and New York's LaGuardia faced gridlock and frustration. Code-share agreements turned into headaches as U.S. passengers found their Air Canada flights canceled. The strike exposed just how intertwined the two countries' aviation markets are. Even after a tentative deal ended the strike, disruptions lingered for days. The crisis highlighted the dangers of relying on a single airline for essential travel. Canadian officials took notice, realizing the need for a more resilient system. The strike became a catalyst for sweeping policy changes. In response, Canada overhauled its government travel procurement in 2026. The government lowered the minimum value for contracts, breaking up massive deals that once favored only the largest airlines. Now, smaller Canadian and international carriers can bid for government business. This move increases competition, flexibility, and reduces the risk of future disruptions. With rising defense spending and public scrutiny, Canada needed to show value for taxpayer dollars. The new policy shifts away from sole sourcing, aiming for a more open and diverse marketplace. The lesson was clear: relying on one provider is too risky. Canada's government now ensures it has multiple options if one airline is grounded. For U.S. airlines, Canada's new rules are both a challenge and an opportunity. Previously, only the biggest carriers could win huge government contracts. Now those contracts are split up, and U.S. airlines must compete with smaller Canadian and international rivals. The loss of guaranteed business means lower profit margins and more competition. But the changes also open doors for U.S. low-cost and regional carriers, who can now bid on specific routes. Airlines like Southwest or JetBlue could win contracts for high-traffic corridors like Toronto, New York. U.S. airlines must adapt, shifting from relying on massive deals to targeting specific markets where they have an edge. Success will depend on offering the best value in a crowded, price-sensitive environment. The era of dominance is over. Now, every contract must be earned. U.S. carriers will need to be nimble, creative, and competitive to thrive. The Canadian market is no longer a safe bet. It's a battleground. The new rules force a complete rethink of cross-border airline strategy. The policy shift is a game-changer for Canadian aviation. Smaller airlines like WestJet and Porter can now compete for government contracts, fueling growth and expansion. Air Canada faces new pressure to compete on price and service, no longer guaranteed the lion's share. For travelers, increased competition means more choices and potentially lower fares on cross-border and domestic routes. As smaller carriers expand, travelers benefit from more flight options and schedules. The duopoly that once defined Canadian air travel is breaking up. The result, a healthier, more competitive industry with multiple strong players. While Air Canada must adapt, its rivals gain a powerful growth engine. Ultimately, consumers stand to win from better prices and more options. The Canadian government's move is reshaping the travel experience for years to come. Canada's changes signal a new era for North American aviation. The Air Canada strike reflected broader labor pressures felt across the continent. The government's push for diversification and risk management could inspire similar moves in the US. If successful, we may see more fragmented, multi-carrier contracts replacing exclusive deals. Airlines must adapt. Legacy carriers will lean on global networks while low-cost carriers compete aggressively on price. Success now depends on flexibility and value, not just size. The US-Canada aviation bond remains strong, but its dynamics are shifting. The turbulence of recent years is driving a more competitive, resilient market. The skies we share are entering a new, consumer-friendly chapter, one defined by choice, competition, and change.